Okay, in order to find the vertex of a quadratic function, if there's nothing in front of x squared, it's a 1. Okay, you have a in front of x squared, b in front of x, and c in front of negative 8. To find the vertex of a quadratic function, the first thing is to use the part of the quadratic formula that says negative b over 2a. So x equals negative b over 2a. Now you want to think of that as the opposite of b. So the opposite of positive 8 is negative 8 over 2 times 1. You get negative 8 over 2. Negative 8 divided by 2 is negative 4. So your vertex is always going to be an ordered pair, and negative 4 is going to be the x value for this. Now to get the y value, you plug that into the original function. So negative 4 squared plus 8 times negative 4 minus 8. Negative 4 times negative 4 is positive 16. 8 times negative 4 is negative 32 minus 8. So when you do that, you get negative 24. So the vertex is negative 4, comma negative 24. The vertex is the turning point of your graph. Okay, so on the next one, again, you have A, B, and C. X is the opposite of B over 2A. So the opposite of positive 8 is negative 8 over 2 times 4. So you get negative 8 divided by 8, which is negative 1. That's the x value of your vertex. And then you plug that into the function. So 4 times negative 1 squared plus 8 times negative 1 plus 1. You've got to take care of the exponent first. So negative 1 times negative 1 is positive 1. 4 times 1 is 4. 8 times negative 1 is negative 8. And you've got a plus 1 there. So that equals negative 3. So your vertex is negative 1, negative 3. Okay, find the vertex of the graph of the quadratic function, determine whether the graph opens up or down, find any intercepts, and sketch the graph. Okay, so there's a 1 in front of x squared. So again, A, B, and C. So the vertex is the first thing you're going to find. And again, x equals the opposite of b. The opposite of positive 8 is negative 8 over 2a. So that's negative 8 divided by 2, which is negative 4. So that is the x value of your vertex. Then you plug that into the original function. Negative 4 squared plus 8 times negative 4 plus 7. So negative 4 times negative 4 is positive 16. 8 times negative 4 is negative 32 plus 7. So that's negative 9. Okay, so the vertex is negative 4, negative 9. Open up or down. If A is positive, it opens up. If A is negative, it opens down. So since A is a positive 1, this parabola is going to open up. Okay, any intercepts. The first thing, those are the x and the y intercepts where they cross those axes. The x-intercept first of all, you want to use the discriminant to see if there is an x-intercept. That's b squared minus 4ac. Because if that's negative, you're finished. That means there is no x-intercept. So let's check that. 8 squared minus 4 times 1 times 7, 64, and then the rest of this gets multiplied together. So minus 28. 64 take away 28. Is 36. So since it's positive, there is an x-intercept, and what you want to do is use the quadratic formula now, which x equals the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So here's what you want to do on that one. The opposite of b, the opposite of positive 8 is negative 8, plus or minus the square root. The b squared minus 4ac, you already figured that out. That was the discriminant. So I can just say the square root of 36 over 2 times a. A is 1. So negative 8 plus or minus, okay, the square root of 36 is 6 over 2. Now before I split these up, you look at the three things that you have there and see what you can divide them by, if anything. I can cut those all in half, divide them by 2. So half of negative 8 is negative 4, plus or minus half of 6 is 3, and then half of 2 is 1, but you don't use that since it's underneath the fraction, it's the denominator. So you've got, now you split them apart, negative 4 plus 3 and negative 4 minus 3. So negative 4 plus 3 is negative 1, and because they've asked you for the x-intercept, you put that with 0. And negative 4 minus 3 is negative 7, and again, because they ask you for the x-intercept, you put that with 0. So those are the x-intercepts. And then the y-intercept. Now the y-intercept is the easiest thing in the world to find. The y-intercept is always 0 with the value of c. So in this case, c was 7. So the y-intercept is 0, 7. Now to sketch the graph. In order to sketch the graph, no matter how ugly it is, you always have to use the vertex. This one's not too bad. Negative 4, negative 9 is right here. And then if the x-intercepts are nice, use them. If they're not nice, I'll show you in a little bit what to do. So negative 1 on the x is right here, and negative 7 on the x is right here. Now you want to connect these with the shape of a U, because that's a parabola. And that one is finished. Okay, number 4. Okay, this one's missing a component. It's missing the b value, so you have to write it as 1x squared plus 0x minus 9, because it is going to make a difference in all your information. Okay, so a is 1, b is 0, c is negative 9. So the vertex x equals the opposite of b over 2a. So the opposite of 0 is just 0. I don't even have to figure out anything else, because 0 divided by anything is just 0. So my vertex, the x value, is going to be 0. So then I plug that into the function. 0 squared plus 0 times 0 minus 9. So 0 plus 0 minus 9 equals negative 9. So the vertex is 0, negative 9. Because a is a positive one, it opens up. The x-intercepts check it against the discriminant first, which is b squared minus 4ac. So I get 0 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 9. That equals 0. Everything else gets multiplied together. So a negative times a negative is positive, and 4 times 1 times 9 is 36. So my discriminant the x-intercept does exist because the discriminant is 36. So now I use x equals the opposite of b, 0, plus or minus the square root of the discriminant, which we said was 36, over 2 times 1. So that 0 just doesn't exist anymore. We have plus or minus 6 over 2. You can divide both of those by 2. So plus or minus half of 6 is 3, half of 2 is 1, but you don't put it. Alright, so because they're asking for x-intercepts, one of them is 3, 0. You always put the x-intercepts with 0, and negative 3, 0 for the other one. Just splitting them apart. My y-intercept the y-intercept is 0 and the value of c. So that's 0 and negative 9. Okay, so you always graph your vertex first. So 0 and negative 9 is right here. This thing's really tiny. And then I'm going to do my x and y intercepts at 3 and negative 3. Right here, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so this is a skinny little graph. Connect it with a U-shaped. Okay, that's number 4. That's it for that one. Number 5, same thing. We've got some big old numbers on this one. A, B, and C. So the vertex, the x value of the vertex is the opposite of B, so the opposite of positive 12 is negative 12 over 2 times A. So that's negative 12 divided by 6, which is negative 2. And then you plug that into the function, so 3 times negative 2 squared plus 12 times negative 2 plus 13. So take care of the exponent first. Negative 2 times negative 2 is 4. 3 times 4 is 12. 12 times negative 2 is negative 24 plus 13. That equals 1. So the vertex is at negative 2, 1. Because A is a positive 3, positive numbers open up. Positive A's open up. The x-intercept tested against the discriminant first, b squared minus 4ac. So b squared, 12 times 12, well, let me plug that into the formula here. B squared minus 4 times a times c. 12 times 12 is 144. These get multiplied together, so you've got minus 12 times 13. 156. That equals negative 12. This is negative discriminant, which means there are no x-intercepts, so you would say none. My y-intercept is 0 with the value of c, so 0, 13. Okay, so you have to graph your vertex, which is at negative 2, 1. right here. These things are tiny. There's no x-intercepts to graph, so the next thing you have to do is to graph the y-intercept, which is at 0, 13. Now, since this y-intercept is 2 units away from your vertex, because you just want to take it up straight like this, it's 2 units away, so you got to go 2 units on the other side to get your other point. So it's going to be right at -4. Alright, so here's the vertex. I mean the graph. Yeah. I'm going to do a little bit of better job of connecting that. Let me see if I can do a little bit better. Because it should only be touching the y-axis at that one spot. It's hard to graph those sometimes. Okay, that's why it says sketch, because I'm not going to get out a calculator and measure your graph. You just got to get it as close as you can. And you notice it did not touch the x-axis. We said it wasn't going to. So everything's good. Okay, this next one, A is 1, B is -6, and C is 8. So the vertex is x equals the opposite of B over 2A. So that's the opposite of -6 is +6 over 2 times 1. That's 6 divided by 2, which is 3. Then you plug that into the function. So 3 squared minus 6 times 3 plus 8. 3 times 3 is 9. -6 times 3 is -18 plus 8. That equals -1. Okay, because A is a positive 1, it opens up. The x-intercepts, test it against the discriminant, b squared minus 4ac. So b squared, the opposite, I'm sorry, that's -6 squared minus 4 times 1 times 8. Okay, -6 times -6 is 36, minus 4 times 8 is 32. The discriminant is 4, which means there are x-intercepts. So let's go ahead and figure those out. X equals the opposite of b. The opposite of -6 is +6, plus or minus the square root of the discriminant, all over 2 times a. So you get 6 plus or minus the square root of 4 is 2, all over 2. Divide all these numbers by 2, so half of 6 is 3, plus or minus 2 divided by 2 is 1. 2 divided by 2 is 1, but you don't put that on the bottom of a fraction. So then you split these apart, 3 plus 1 and 3 minus 1. 3 plus 1 is 4, and because they asked you for the intercept, you put that with 0. 3 take away 1 is 2. You also put that with 0. So these are your x-intercepts. Your y-intercept is 0 with the value of c, so 0, 8. So 3, -1. Wow, it's really, really small. 3, -1 is the vertex. Okay, 4, 0 is right here. Sorry, this graph is really small. 2, 0 is right here. So there is your parabola right there. It opened up and it had x-intercepts. Everything looks good. Okay, on this one, you notice there's no constant, so you have to put a +0 at the end. So you've got your A, your B, and your C. Okay, so the vertex x equals the opposite of b over 2a. So the opposite of positive 13 is negative 13 over 2 times negative 13. That's negative 13 divided by negative 26. That equals a positive 1/2. But in order to graph this, you really want it, I guess you can do it as 1/2. Yeah, I'd prefer it as a decimal if you graph it, so I'm just going to call it 0.5. Okay, so it's actually easier too with your calculator to use 0.5 into the function. So negative 13 times 0.5 squared plus 13 times 0.5. Okay, exponents first. So 0.5 squared is 0.25 times negative 13 is negative 3.25. And then 13 times 0.5 is 6.5. So then you put those together and you get 3.25. Wow, this one's not going to be fun to graph. That's okay. Okay, because a is negative, it opens down. The x-intercepts test it against the discriminant, b squared minus 4ac. So you've got 13 squared minus 4 times negative 13 times 0. Okay, 13 squared is 169. All this multiplied together, well, 0 times anything is 0. So the discriminant is 169. So your x-intercepts do exist. So x equals the opposite of b. The opposite of positive is 13 is negative 13, plus or minus the square root of the discriminant, all over 2 times a. I'm sorry, that's supposed to be a negative 13 there. Okay, so that equals negative 13 plus or minus the square root of 13 is 13, all over negative 26. Now we can divide all these numbers by 13, so I'm going to do that. Negative 13 divided by 13 is negative 1, plus or minus 13 divided by 13 is 1, over negative 26 divided by 13 is negative 2. So this is where you split it apart. Negative 1 plus 1 divided by negative 2, and negative 1 minus 1 divided by negative 2. So negative 1 plus 1 is 0. 0 divided by negative 2 is 0. So you put that with 0 because it's the x-intercept. So 0, 0 is one of your x-intercepts. Negative 1 and negative 1 is negative 2. Divided by negative 2 is a positive 1, and you put that with 0. So those are your x-intercepts. And then your y-intercept is 0 with a value of c. So c is, well, 0. 0, 0. Okay. So your vertex is 1/2. That's right here. And 3.25. I gotta move it up a little bit. So 1/2 and 3.25 is right there. And then your x-intercepts are 0, 0, and I think it was 1, 0. Yes. 1, 0. You connect those with a U Sorry, that's supposed to touch the vertex there. That's better. All right, that one's done. Okay, so this is a -1 here. So you've got your A, your B, and your C. So the vertex x equals the opposite of b, the opposite of +2 is -2 over 2 times a. So that's -2 divided by -2, which is a +1. Oops, sorry, I didn't need that. +1. Then you plug that into the function. Okay, so you get 1 times 1 is 1, so that's negative, stays out front, -1, and then 2 times 1 is 2, plus 2, minus 2. That equals -1. That's the vertex. Because A is negative, it opens down. The x-intercepts, you want to test those against the discriminant, so b squared minus 4ac. So 2 squared minus 4 times -1 times -2. 2 times 2 is 4. The rest of this gets multiplied together. A negative times a negative is a positive, times a negative is a negative, and 4 times 2 is 8. Discriminant is -4, and because that's negative, there are no x-intercepts. The y-intercept is 0 with the value of c. Okay, so your vertex is 1, -1. There are no x-intercepts, so then you got to graph the y-intercept, which is a 0, -2. That's 1 away from the vertex, so you've got to go 1 on the other side. And you've got your parabola. Okay, and then the final one for today, it's just the same thing over and over again. You have A, B, and C. So the vertex x equals the opposite of b. The opposite of -12 is +12 over 2 times a. So that's 12 over 6. 12 divided by 6 is 2. I plug that into the function. 3 times 2 squared minus 12 times 2 plus 14. Exponent first, so 2 times 2 is 4. 3 times 4 is 12. -12 times 2 is -24. Plus 14, that equals 2. Okay, because I need to see A for these. A is positive, it opens up. The x-intercepts you have to check that against the discriminant. B squared minus 4ac. So you've got -12 squared minus 4 times 3 times 14. So -12 times -12 is a +144. And then you multiply these together. That's 168. So minus 168. That's going to be a -24. Because the discriminant is negative, there are no x-intercepts. And the y-intercept is 0 with the value of c. So the vertex is at 2, 2. There's no x-intercept, so you got to use the y-intercept, which is at 0, 14. That's 2 units away from the vertex, so you got to go 2 units on the other side. You connect them with a U, and you are finished.